In this video, we'll be creating an entire system for handling our keybinds, including default settings, saving them in an effective way, and loading them from a save file. Creating keybinds is a relatively simple thing, but saving them and loading them is a whole other cup of coffee within Godot. So I've decided to create the only guide you'll hopefully ever need to design a system you can improve upon and expand as much as you'll need for as many keybinds as you'll need in the future. In future videos, we'll be adding some quality of life options to the menu, polishing it up a little, and then moving on to some other projects I've been creating that I'm very excited to share. If you'd like to see that and much more, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss out on any uploads. As always, if you have an issue with the code, want to see a mechanic built, or just want to say hi, remember to leave a comment. With that said, let's move into our editor and start coding. Now we are within our editor, we need to go and set a few things up. The very first thing we're going to actually be setting up is a new resource. Now, the reason I like using resources, if I go over to my script here and I go over to the save settings or the settings data container we created in the previous video, we have this kind of setup for us where it's a default settings resource. That default settings resource contains all of the default settings for these specific variables. Now I'm going to show you another way of using a resource but storing all of the variables inside it or inside of it rather than having kind of preset resources or preset variables here for us. So let's go and do that real quick, and this is going to be for the, let me go down into scenes, go down to resources, settings, create a new script. This new script is going to be called the player keybind resource. I'm going to hit create that. Now that we have this created, we're going to go and give it a class name of player keybind resource. And now we're going to need to give it a few variables. So the way we're going to be doing this is, long story short, I was trying to get a way of removing some magic strings, i.e. having to type in the action names and things like that, and I kind of came up with a decent system. So we're going to create three types of variables. We're going to create 3 constants, 3 exports, and 3 normal variables. Now, why 3? Well, I only have 3 specific actions right now. It's kind of the best part about a resource is you can expand as much as you need to, and it's just a resource. It's nothing that spooky. Other thing we're going to want to do is change the extends here to resource. There we go. Now, the first constant we're going to create in all caps is going to be move underscore left. So my move left action, this is going to be of type string. And this is going to be because this is going to hold the name of the action, like so. We'll do one more for move right. So another constant, move underscore right, typecast it as a string, set it equal to move underscore right. One more for jump. So const jump string equal to jump. Now I will very quickly go up to my project settings, auto loads, input map, there we go. And here are the things, move left, move right, jump. So those are the action names. Now just below this, we're going to create an exported variable. So export var default. I'm going to be using all caps for these. Usually I don't use all caps for exported variables, but when it comes to default settings, because you can't have an exported constant, I like to just remind myself these are default settings, these are not to be changed. So default settings, default underscore move underscore left, and then I'm going to put underscore key at the end of this. Then I'm going to set it equal to an input event key dot new. So what is this doing? Well, one, we're creating a variable, or we're creating an exported variable for the default move left key, and then it's setting equal to an input event key dot new. What does this actually allow us to do? Well, this will allow us to create, like on the export, which will be up here under the resource, we will be able to set or preset a default key or a default input key, which in this case will be a physical key on our keyboard. That way we can have defaults stored, and all we have to do is set them up once. So I'm going to go and create another export var for default underscore move underscore right underscore key. Set this also equal to an input event key. There we go, dot new. And then we're going to do one more. I'm just going to copy that line, paste it in. We're going to do one more for the default jump key. So these are our exported variables for our specific keys. And now we're going to want another variable, the final variable, which is going to be an internal resource variable. So not exported, it's going to be set by something else and then used by something else. We're going to call this var move underscore left underscore key. So basically, same naming convention up here, but we're not capitalizing it. And it's also going to be set to an input event key dot new. And we're going to create a few more of these. So move left, move right, and jump. So let's look at these real quick. We have the naming convention, or we have the specific action names for them. Then we have the exported variables to set defaults up. And then we have these. These are going to be what gets where we store the customized keybinds or the customized hotkeys, right? We just need to have that set up in this way. Now, you can create either another resource or you can store this in the settings data container like we've done with these. Personally, I don't see another reason to have another resource, and I like to have all of my things kind of, in this instance at least, stored in one place. It just helps the coding go a little bit faster. So I'm going to hit Control S and save. And then I'm going to go down into settings, and I'm going to create a new resource, and it's going to be of type player keybind resource. And I'm going to call this player keybind default, and I'm going to hit save. Now, if I go and click that player keybind default, you'll see we have the default move left key, default move right key, and default jump key. Now, inside of these, I can literally click empty, or click the empty box, new input event key, then I can click on that, click on configure, and now all I have to do is configure an event for it. So move left, my default is going to be A. What I've been doing is, you can use Latin equivalent. I've been using physical key codes. There's a reason why these two are different. I just use physicals for now. I can probably go into the difference between physical Unicode and Latin equivalent. But for now, we'll just set these up as physical keys. So this is move right. This is going to be D. I'm going to change this to the physical key code. And then I'm going to give one more for the default jump key. You can click on these again to hide them or fold them back in. Space, physical key code. Okay. Now that is the default keys all set up for us. These will never change now unless we change them purposefully, which we're not going to. So with that done, we now need to go down into the settings data container that we created before, and we need to create another onReady variable. So at the very top, we're going to write onReady var, and this will be of keybind underscore resource, and it's going to be of type player keybind resource. And then I'm going to equal this to a preload, and we are going to want to preload that player keybind defaults.tres. So the player keybinds resource we just created between these. See, this is the other reason, is because now what I can do, if I want to keep this kind of the same as I've done with this keybind resource here, in the default settings, I can go and throw this in there, or these specific settings that are already in there, create their own variables and start setting them like that. But we won't worry about that for now. Now, with this actually working, we now need to go and create something fun. Under our create storage dictionary here, we are going to go and create a new function for creating, so create underscore keybind underscore dict or dictionary, if you really want to make sure you're naming things a bit more verbosely so people can understand them a bit easier. So we've got our create keybinds dictionary. It's going to return a dictionary. Now what do we want to do with this? Well, we're going to create a new variable inside of it for the keybinds container underscore dict, and then set it equal to a new dictionary, and we'll open that up and we're going to start using it. So dictionaries require a key and a value. How are we going to get our key and value? Well, we could magic string and just type in a name and then use the keybind resources dot whatever, or we can actually go and grab the keybind resource dot move left, so that is the name, and then we are going to want the keybind resource dot, and now we're just going to grab the normal move left, because we're going to be setting this move left. This isn't storing our defaults, this is going to be storing the variables that we want to set, so our customized keys. The defaults are already preset and we don't want to modify them. We only want to modify the custom keys. So now we're going to go and create one more for move right. So keybind resource dot move right, and then we'll have the keybind resource dot move right key, and then finally we'll do one more for jump. So keybind resource dot jump in all caps, keybind resource dot jump key. And now we're going to need to type in return after we've created our dictionary, and we're going to want to return this dictionary. So how do we get this to actually be saved with all of our save functionality going on? Well, this is where nested dictionaries become very useful, and where you may actually want to create nested dictionaries for your volume, for your accessibility settings, for your display settings. We can go through and do that in a different video. For now, we're just going to create a new key inside of our storage dictionary, and this is going to be, the key is going to be called keybinds, and we're going to set it equal to that function we have for creating the keybinds dictionary. So when this gets created, so when this function gets ran, it's going to set all of these, or all of these keys and their value pairs, and then it's going to get to this one, and it's because this is returning a dictionary, it's going to set this equal to the dictionary. So now we are saving our keybinds. We need to now go and look at how we plan on getting our hotkeys and setting our hotkeys. So let's scroll all the way down to the very bottom here. And we created a signal handler, which handles all of the signals. And then we created specifically this signal, setting signal bus load settings data. So this load settings data gets fired from the save manager here at the very end after it has loaded the data. One quick thing I forgot to mention, by the way, is after you fire this signal, you can go to loaded data and then set it equal to an empty dictionary. That way you're not always storing the save data. You can kind of free up that variable and free up some of that memory. Yes, this is emitting the loaded data, which is then being fed into this handle signals, and this is connecting to the on settings data loaded, which means right here in on settings data loaded, we are now setting all of our, or we're using all of our setter functions. I've named them on, I should have named them set, but still, these are all of our setter functions for setting variables, which means we now want to go and create a new one. I'm going to go above the on settings data loaded here, and I'm going to write on underscore keybinds underscore loaded. Don't forget to write func. We actually want to have this as a function. There we go. And what this is going to take is a data, so a data container, and it's going to be of type dictionary. Give it a void return because it doesn't need to return anything. And for now, we'll type in pass, because what we're going to need to do is go back into this settings data loaded and then pass in or call the new function we just created on keybinds loaded. And we're going to want to pass in the loaded data dot, and then we can just call keybinds. Now, why is this going to work? Well, if I scroll all the way back up, where we've created this key, we're now going to access this key, which will access the dictionary inside of it. And we want our data specifically passed into this, the dictionary passed into this, just to be the keybinds. So with that done, we're now going to need to actually start setting up and saving our hotkeys kind of correctly. And now this can get a little bit complicated, and this is a script that will over time kind of grow. Good news is it does have an end. You can only have so many keybinds for so many things and so many actions. So it's not like a infinitely large thing, but it can get a bit large. So on keybinds loaded, let's see what we want to do. We're going to create a new variable, and this is going to be for the loaded underscore move underscore left. We're going to set this equal to an input event key dot new, and we're going to create one of these variables for the three hotkeys or keybinds that we actually want to use. I'm going to rename these, so move left, move right, and of course jump. So these are our loaded keys. Now we're going to want to set them equal to something. Well, here's a fun little function that you can do with input event keys. We can call the key, so in this case, loaded move left, and then we can use dot set underscore physical underscore, I can spell physical underscore key code. Now, what do we want to set this to? Well, For setting a physical key code, you actually need the number of the key. So how do we plan on getting the number of the key? Well, in the data that we loaded for the keybinds, we're actually saving the integer value for the key. Well, we're saving it as a text, but we're saving it as we're saving the actual integer value of the key code. So what we're going to want to do is write int. So we want to convert a text string to int, and then we're going to want to grab the data variable and then grab the move underscore left. So what is move left? Let's go back up into this. Well, we're saving the key here, which is the dictionary. You're going to have to kind of follow me with this one. It's a bit of a rabbit hole. Creating a dictionary. The keys that are being saved is the name, and then the name of the key we want to use, and then the value of the key we want to save. So the value or name of the key here is move left. So this is what our dictionary's key is right here. It's the primary action names. Let's scroll all the way back down and get back to here. So we're now grabbing the integer value of the move left key. Now we're going to do it again for loaded move right dot. Because of how this likes to not give me ItaliCents, I'm just going to do that. Grab the move right key, and then we'll do one more for jump. So loaded jump. I'm going to set this equal to the jump. So now we're actually grabbing the physical key codes and we're turning these input event keys that have nothing in them into an active key. So what do we do with this? Well, now we are going to grab that keybind resource we originally created, and we're going to access the move left key, and then we're going to set it equal to the loaded move left. So now that we've grabbed the move left key, we're going to need to do this for the rest of them. So let's go and grab the keybind resource dot move right key, and set it equal to the loaded move right. And then finally the loaded jump dot loaded jump keybind resource dot jump key equals loaded jump. So that is the on keybinds loaded done. This gets ran the minute this signal gets called, which is as soon as the game begins. If a save file exists, it will call this, and then it will set the keys for us depending on what key values they need. So now we're going to need to go and create a couple more functions. We're going to need to grab create a setter, which is what these on SFX sound set and resolution selected. These are our setters. And why do we need these setters? Well, these are going to be the specific setters for rebinding the key. So these are going to be called from the hotkey buttons that we've created in the past. So to do this, we're going to write func set underscore keybind, give it a void return type. And now I'm going to write pass because we're going to need some parameters. We're going to need two things. We're going to need the action, which will be a string variable, and an event. Now the event will be of type input event key, but we're just going to leave this as a untyped variable for now. It just will lead to some less errors in the future, and you can go and type it if you'd like to. So with this done, we now need to add a match statement. This match statement will match the action that we want to take, and we're going to go and check it against a few names. Now this is once again where the keybind resource we created comes in. We're going to want to grab the move left name. So if the action is equivalent to move left, or what name or what the string value of move left is, we're now going to want to set the keybind resource dot move left key equal to the event. Now we're going to do this for, again, all of our keybind resource names. So keybind resource dot move right key, not move right key, move right. Set our keybind resource dot move right key equal to the event. And then finally, keybind resource dot jump, set that keybind resource dot jump key equal to the. So the new question is, how and where is this getting called? Let's hit Control S and save this. Now let's go back to our keybind, our hotkey rebind button that we created a while ago. I'm going to be using hotkey and keybind interchangeably. Kind of a fault of how I've set this up, but bear with me. So in our options menu, the hotkey rebind button, We now need to figure out how and where we're going to be calling certain things, like set hotkey. Well, what we can do here is in the rebind action key event, we can actually go and call the save manager, not save manager, the settings manager, settings container, dot set underscore hotkey. Did I not save that? Set keybind. This is the issue. This is why you don't use things interchangeably. Set keybind. And we're going to want to pass in the action name and the event. So basically, when we rebind the key, it's going to set the keybind via the action name and the event. What's the action name? If we scroll up, the action name is the string variable that we've set up here, which will be changed per button that we use. So that is now setting them at the same time our button sets them. That's great. And now we're going to need to go and set a getter function, because we want to now have the ability to retrieve that loaded data and then preset the buttons to that specific loaded data. So I'm going to go up to the top here where I've got all of my getters. I'm going to put it under the sound effects volume. It's going to be func get underscore keybinds, or what you call it get keybind. This is going to once again need an action and a string. And I'm not going to set the return type for now because the return type is a bit finicky with this one. So we're going to do a check. We're going to go if loaded data dot has, and then we want to check in the keybinds. Now I'm going to type pass because there's one thing I actually didn't say. We need to do if not. So we're going to put an exclamation mark just before loaded data, because this is going to be, hey, if there is no keybinds, specific value or specific key in the loaded data dictionary that we've got setting up here, we want to make sure that we actually load our default data. So once again, we're going to match the action. We're going to be matching the keybind resource dot move left, and then we're going to be returning the keybind resource dot default move left key. Now we're going to do this for all of our keybinds again. So move right, and then return the keybind resource dot default move right key, and then finally we want the keybind resource dot jump, and we want to return the keybind resource dot default jump key. I forgot to capital that. There we go. So this is us handling our hey if this doesn't exist. So now we want to make it so we'll do a check to make sure that it does exist. So we're just going to do else to this if statement, and then we're once again going to match the action, and it's going to be pretty much the same statement as this. So I'm going to just copy and paste. But instead of returning the defaults, we now just want to return the customs. So the normal move left, the normal move right, and the normal jump. Now I hit Control S and save. Now that is actually the saving and loading of the keybind setup, but we want to make sure these actually go and get loaded. So I'm going to go into the hotkey rebind button. I'm going to come to nearly to the top. And at the very top here, just under the ready function, I'm going to create func load underscore keybinds. I'm going to give this a void return. Now I'm going to actually go down and I'm going to be calling the rebind action key, which takes an event. So what is the event and how do we do it? Right. So we're going to call it. So rebind action key. And the event we're going to want to call is the settings container dot get underscore hotkey get keybind. There we go. I'm going to keep doing that. And the keybind name that we're going to want to pass through, of course, is action name. Now we need to think about where we want to load these. Well, if we can set this kind of anywhere because we're resetting the text and action name every time we rebind the key. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just call load keybinds here. Now I'm going to hit F5 and go and see if it crashes, which it did. That is because keybinds does not exist in the current dictionary. Now, why does it not exist? Well, this is one of the downsides of having to kind of change your save data a little bit. If I go into the open user data file, and then I see this settings save data, I'm going to need to delete this. File, there we go. delete that. Now I'm going to hit F5, loads our game up. Going to go and first set the window mode to window mode. Now I'm going to go and check the controls. The controls are loading. It's loaded A, D, and space. That's perfect. Let's change these to Q, E, and W. Hit exit, and then hit F5 again. Go to options, go to controls, and that's the moment of truth. It has now rebound our keys. Now, to make sure that these are actually functioning and we can use them, let's go in game. That's E, that's Q, that's W. And that is how you save, load, and create key bindings in Godot 4. It was, or at least it took a little while to actually figure out a decent system for this. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed, I hope it helped. And if you need any help with the code or have run into any issues, please make sure to leave a comment. Yeah, I will be seeing you in the next video.